So I would like to call to order this regular board meeting for the month of February 2019. And our first item of business is to accept the agenda. I don't believe there are any suggestions for modifying the agenda.
No.
I move we accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously. And that will move us into public comment. So, is there anyone from the public wishing to comment separate from our staff introductions that are coming up?
I think we have a staff update.
Yeah,
okay.
If you excuse me for just a minute.
And just hold on.
I wonder how Katie's like. How are you holding up?
I still have hair.
You haven't been yanking it out with a handful?
Okay.
Hi, Stacy. How are you? Doing well. How are you? Good. Nice to meet you here. Good to see you. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you guys so much for having me out today. Hi, Savannah. I'm Stacy. This is for you, and I have a little speech. I have a paper I have to read. So, my name is Stacy Clements, and I am here as the immediate past president of the Environmental Education Association of Illinois, EEAI. And EEAI was formed in 1972, and our mission is to provide vital network of quality environmental education throughout the state. Now, Savannah, back in 2011, joined us as the public relations chair. And her job was one of the most important on the board, and as you guys know, public relations is huge. Her job was to support EEAI's collaborative relationships with members, educators, businesses, media outlets, other organizations, and the public, and promotes the mission and image of EEAI. Savannah was integral in creating announcements and public relations materials for 7 state conferences and brought in over 700 people during that time. I counted. She was also crucial on our yearly annual appeals, creating and maintaining our new website through Weebly, and creating our sponsor recognition program, bringing in more income into the organization. She helped educate the public on the importance of environmental education, increasing our donors and cultivating members. She promoted a positive image of our organization to achieve our mission and goals. So as you know, this is an extremely challenging role, and Savannah did an amazing job, and at no pay. So I want to thank you so much for 7 years of dedicated service to EEAI.
Thank you. I really
And your presentation's actually for another evening, so we had to get you.
We had to get you here somehow.
You can go home. Please introduce me again next time.
Sure.
We're actually taking you out.
Okay.
So we're leaving.
Oh.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, thanks for coming.
It was kind of not so nice.
You did good work. Are we supposed to do it?
Oh, you did do it. Yeah.
She'll have a good time.
That's right.
So, she's ready. We'll have her back.
I told her not to, because I was like, just give me some quick, easy numbers.
Okay, so are we ready then to move on to staff introductions?
Yes, I think we're on to introductions. I think Judy's up first on the agenda.
Right here.
Oh, for Pete's sakes.
Hi, all. I'm very pleased to introduce you to Travis Pittman. He is our environmental program intern this semester. He's been with us for a couple weeks now, almost 5 weeks. Busy helping with a variety of programs. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about all the activities that he's been doing and the things that he'll be working on while he's with us.
So, like Judy said, I'm Travis. I've been working on the pre-K programs, so those are the public programs that we provide at the Anita Purvis Nature Center. I've also been working on a few bigger projects like the Great Backyard Bird Count and the Storytelling Festival coming up soon. So yeah, I'm continuing to gain more roles and responsibility as I go, but for right now, I've worked on those programs mostly. Yep.
And the Great Backyard Bird Count is this weekend.
Yeah, this Saturday.
This Saturday. We hope to see you all there.
Great.
Right.
It's awesome.
If they don't get all blown off their perches, poor things.
I know, it's so
All right.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Travis.
You're
for
welcome.
coming.
Exciting.
Can't take my pen apart. Oh, we got
Hello,
Hey.
I am here to introduce Matthew Lewis. Matthew is an intern from Western Illinois University, and he's here for the spring semester. And he is spending time in a number of different areas. He's doing a lot with athletics. He's also helping out Nikki and community programs with Splash and doing several other things. Hopefully that's not my car. And I'll let Matthew explain some of what he's doing.
So yeah, like she was saying, I do work mostly in athletics. I work, I coach a youth sports team at Thomas Paine and Wiley. I do coach or help with Hoopsters, the basketball team at Brookins. I'm mostly working with Kyle on a lot of other events and other things that he has going on. Help him out with spreadsheets. I do work with Nikki with like the Splash program, and recently I just helped her out with the family date night event that she had on Saturday. Yeah, Saturday.
Sounds like it was really popular.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great turnout. It was awesome. And I do sometimes I help with the pre-K Fridays over at the Nature Center. And yeah, usually just a little bit of everywhere. Working as much as I can, pretty
A
much.
person of many talents.
Yeah, he's very open to trying a lot
Yes.
of things. He'll be spending time in aquatics with Leslie.
Oh yeah, and working with Leslie on her egg hunt.
Egg hunt
Oh,
with
egg
the
hunt.
Yeah,
Splash.
egg hunt with the Splash and the Kempa or Palooza. Yeah, Palooza. I'm trying to learn everything. Yeah, I'm working with Leslie on that too. I'm working with Elsie and Ashley over at Phillips Rec Center to try to get donations and sponsors and stuff from different businesses and everything. So
Well, you passed the test of knowing everybody's names, so that's good.
That's impressive.
We're keeping Matthew real busy. He's getting to see everything and learning a lot about the Park District, which is part of the goal for the internship. He'll even be helping with some of the marketing and stuff.
yes.
So, you know.
So what do you envision doing when you finished here? Because I assume this is the end of your college work, right?
Yes.
So then what are you interested in doing?
Well, my long-term goal is I like theme parks, so my long-term goal is to be like the president or an owner of a Six Flags one day.
Oh, wow.
So, but right now, in terms of like short-term, just right after college, is working in park districts, learning as much as I can about this, because this taught me a lot. And then I've worked at Six Flags before, and a lot of stuff that I could have known while working there, I learned a lot here, and I learned a lot working at other park districts before here, and it taught me a lot. So I feel like working at, learning like the base, or like learning about all of events, setting up, like learning about how events work, how programs work, how much work goes into it, how much money goes into it, how much planning and all of this goes into just making one event that, and hoping for a turnout and learning all of this is just, it helps me out a lot. So I feel like that'll help me out for the future.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm afraid of roller coasters, so I don't. But my grandkids. You might be at your park.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
that moves us along to the UPDAC report, and I think that was just a written report. Is that? Were there any comments on the minutes from that meeting?
I'm just trying to think. I think that I like the idea of moving UPDAC meetings around in the Park District. I think it's a good idea, and especially to be able to see what's going on at Phillips. We could see that we saw the progress that's been made so far in the kitchen, and I think it'll be great to bring them back later on so that they can say, oh yeah, I see how much a difference has been made, and you can see how good things look. As a good attendance, it's really a great group. It's one of the best UPDAC groups that we've had for a long time. They're interested and they're engaged, and they ask good questions, and I think it's a very thoughtful group, wouldn't you say? Yeah. Yep. So they're off and running, or at least walking slowly on the ice.
Any other comments or questions on UPDAC? All right, then that moves us along to our consent agenda. And on the consent agenda for this evening, our approval of the minutes for the January 8, 2019 regular board meeting, the receipt of the monthly reports from the 3 divisions that we normally get on a monthly basis, action to accept the philanthropy report and gifts listed with gratitude, and approval of the monthly paid accounts payable. So it is the purview of any single commissioner to remove any or all of these items from the consent agenda for action individually. Is there any commissioner wishing to remove any item from this consent agenda? Hearing no indication of that, is there a motion to approve all the action items on the agenda and the receipt of the reports in an omnibus manner?
I move that we approve all of the action items on the consent agenda and accept all of the information items listed on the consent agenda in an omnibus manner.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded, and under our rules for the consent agenda, there's to be no further discussion. So we will hold a roll call vote, beginning at the left here with Roseanne.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously with all 5 commissioners voting. And that moves us then into reports, financial reports.
I love them.
It's easy to read. Yeah.
You like the paid accounts payable? You liked this one?
Yes, I do. I do a lot. It's a much, I mean, it's going to take some getting used to in terms of the format, but it's so much easier to read.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank
Yes.
you for that feedback. Yeah, so this was kind of a hybrid month where we still were using the AS400 until the 17th. So we actually were able to final the P card in the AS400, which is why you still have that P card report. And then the AS400 looking report for the paid accounts payable were all the checks we wrote up through the 17th.
Right.
And this is the checks we wrote after that.
Okay.
Out of the new
'Cause there
system.
was no overlap between the two, because I was hunting around. I saw it was a different format since it's listed by page, and
Yeah, just cutoff date, and, so this is the old system, this is the new system. It was pretty challenging to come up with a format. This is actually a custom report that I created with the help of our implementation team, but all of the fields are there. It's just getting them in a format you want, and unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can customize. I can't change the sort order and things like that I wish I could do unless I export it to Excel and do a bunch of side work. So this is,
It's too much work, yeah.
if you liked it, I'm so glad because I didn't have to do a lot to do this one. So
Good. Well,
and
it's so easy to read. I think
welcome
if
your
nothing else.
feedback
Yeah,
as
yeah.
we move forward. So
Yeah, and if we want to look for why is something higher than the other, they're all grouped together, right?
Right, yep, yep.
It's all
yep,
there
yep.
in this, as opposed to
sorting through pages
yeah,
after
yeah,
pages.
Right, yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever. I think it's great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so the only challenge with this one that I wasn't sure that the board particularly cared about is there's not a total by fund of the expenditures, but that information is still available in the treasurer's report.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know that you really needed it as part of this, like it had a total at the end of each fund. So that information is still valid, it's just in a different report. So that's kind of where I ended up with that one. And then you can see I worked really hard at creating the 3 reports that I did create two of which you've seen before because I was able to keep them in their current format pretty easily with less work because in the AS400, I had to hand key all of these balances in every month.
Every single one?
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
every month. It's actually even more than that, and then these total them all together. So now I can actually export it for the most part in Excel. It's just a lot easier, and I can sort it and put the information in. So I think overall, the reports that were available, this is kind of, the treasurer's report is kind of what I would call more of like a balance sheet report. It's showing you the assets of the park district, not the liabilities, but at least an assets summary. And the reports that were available, there's certainly reports that have this information, but they're not concise to one page. And so I think that is valuable to keep this report around because I can certainly get a list of bank balances by fund for each bank account we have. That's an assets report, but it's several pages long. And so that's what I do like about this is, you know, you have your bank accounts, you have your funds, and you know what the balances are in one page. So I think I'm going to continue to do this report, and then as long as you like it, I know can be kind of like you need to get your magnifying glasses out, but for the most part, I think the treasurer's report is going to stay in the current format after seeing what I could produce out of the system and still liking this one better. So,
Now,
go
you
for
said
it.
you had some issues about sorting. I mean, I found the old one valuable where it was broken down by what the division was and where the money was going as opposed. Is it possible to cut this both ways, one by payee and then the other by?
I can see what I can do. Yeah, so we did put the department is here. So, I mean, that information's here, it's just not sorted by that. But I can see if I can sort it by that.
Yeah.
So you liked it sorted by department?
And I hate to waste a lot of paper, but it could be nice to have actually sorted each way.
It's a different view, yeah. Well, and there's a lot of reports, I can say this too, there's a lot of reports and a lot of sorting capabilities if I run reports that have almost like too much information. They have the date the checks were written, they have the check numbers, they have like vendor addresses, like it's just like way too much information that it took me a while to get a format that I was like, the board doesn't need to know the actual account number, they need to know the fund, department, and account name, because that number means nothing to anybody. You know, I mean, it hardly means anything to me since I changed the whole chart of accounts. So, so you know, I'll certainly see what I can do, Michael, and I do welcome the feedback because just because I can't, even if I can't get this format to work, let me see what I can do, and I'm going to learn more about it the more I poke around. So.
Well, I think you're off to a good start.
Yeah. So I will talk about the reports I did produce. So the first one is basically actually the fund balance report. It goes by a new name now, though. It's called the Revenue and Expenditure Report, but it actually has all the same information as the fund balance report that you used to see. It's formatted slightly differently. It summarizes the information in a couple different spots. So I'll overview that for you, but we really do have sum one here still, which is all funds except for the capital improvements fund. And so this is a good view of the operations side of the district, the operating budget, without commingling of our capital budget, which can really have a lot of swings. So total revenue for this 9-month period was $8,776,000. And you can see we have the 3 columns still represented that we always had on the previous fund balance report. We have the actual activity for the end of last fiscal year. We have the budget for the current year, and then we have the balance for the 9 months we've been through thus far. And I was so pleased when I started running these reports. Everything exactly matches our audit. Everything exactly matches our ending balances. So the conversion has gone very smoothly. It took me a little while to get all these categories sorted out, see where it says net, you know, net property taxes, net interest. That's because these are sorted into categories. So each of the accounts has to be assigned to a category in order for it to summarize into these figures. And it took me a little bit of finagling to get them all in the right spots, because that wasn't quite as smooth since we made so many changes to the chart of accounts, but I did it, so it's all really going great. This is one of the differences, though, is after revenue, you'll see there's another total for other sources of funds, and this is going to be transfers in from other funds, which is really going to be offset by transfers out at the end. And this was a section that used to be towards the end of the old fund balance report that had the ins and the outs together, but I can't sort it that way on this one. So you'll see total revenues plus transfers in, and then you'll see the expenditures and then the transfers out. But in the end, the net effect is still the same. Down at the bottom, the underline, the net change of revenue, we're up right now by $1,020,000. So you can see that's our change after 9 months. So that's the impact to our fund balance. So the starting fund balance was 5.3 million, and so if you add that net change of 1 million, then we're at 6.4 million at the end of this year, just in the operating funds. And then again, we have page 2 is exactly basically the same report we've always seen, just the capital improvements fund. We have revenue of $100,000. We have other sources of funds, which also includes bond sales as well as the transfer in from the English fund. And then we have capital expenditures of $678,000 for a net change in fund balance of a positive $390,000 that we'll continue to spend out through the end of the fiscal year. And we are budgeting for a reduction in fund balance of $496,000. So a lot of that just depends on timing of projects and where we're at with those projects and how much construction kicks off here before the end of the fiscal year. So we always over budget here because the whole goal is to spend this whole fund out. So we always have a healthy contingency to spend because we actually want to continue to spend that until we've spent all of the money. So.
And this is the OSLAD grant will go into this?
Yes, the OSLAD grant and the ITEP grant for the Park Street path as well.
Right. And that money won't come in, though, until we've actually started work. Is that?
I believe
Is
so.
that right?
Derek, do you know the timing of the receipt of OSLAD funds?
I think they'll do 50% at some point. New Delhi, be ready. I think that's
our
correct.
I'm not sure on the timing, but
Yeah.
ITEP's been great to work with because we've been able to bill ongoing. So we received 4 reimbursements, or 3 or 4 at this point.
I think 3 reimbursements, yeah. So we'll just kind of save up a few of our invoices.
Oh,
and send
great.
a formal request with a letter, and then it usually takes, I don't know, a month and a half to 2 months. At the longest, probably, that we get the check back for it.
Yeah, well, and that was kind of one of the things we were a little worried about with the project is cash flowing it and having enough cash to be able to pay those bills and wait for that reimbursement. But because it's been going really smoothly, so I've been really happy with it.
We've been reimbursed everything for the preliminary and the engineering portion, basically, at this point. So.
Yeah, well, that's something you always worry about with state funds, if they're gonna write the check, so that's all going really great. Okay, so that's the capital improvements fund, and then finally, this is, again, just the first 2 pages, this is all funds district-wide for the entire district, and you can see the ending fund balance for the district is 8.5 million at the end of January. So, and then after that, I went ahead and ran a summary of the museum, or the general fund, the recreation fund, the museum fund, and the aquatics center. So you can look at each of those individually as well. So that should look fairly familiar.
And just my technical curiosity, were you able to generate this directly in that system rather than you having to export it out to a spreadsheet to add all the highlighting and the other stuff?
I added the headings and the lines to bring attention to them, but it's something that I import directly on every time. It takes me a matter of seconds, so that's not a big deal at all. I do that through the PDF program that we use. So the very first time to get it set up and get the fields where you want them takes a little time, but ongoing, as soon as I run this report, I'll drop the import back into it and all the lines will be there.
Fantastic.
So.
Great.
Yeah, I think otherwise, if there's no lines drawing you to the totals, it can be a little overwhelming.
I think it's a good idea. I'm glad you have them in there. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So unfortunately, they're not built into the report, but that's okay. I'm totally fine with continuing to do that, and I think this report has pretty good information, so.
Do you think long-term this program will save you time, or will it be, it will?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
It's going great. Yeah, it's very efficient. The one thing that we've found that I've been so happy with is, this might be too much information or go over your heads, and that's totally fine, but our registration system is not fund balanced. We only have one cash account that the money goes into, which is the recreation fund. And so we were having to manually adjust those journal entries to fund balance them, because if somebody pays for a pavilion rental, that revenue goes to the general fund and the cash needs to go to the general fund. And if somebody registers for a nature center program, that cash needs to go to the museum fund. And so but the system itself only has one cash account registration system. And so when those would come over, we would do these spreadsheets or these kind of templates on top of every deposit to fund balance out all the money before we posted it. And of course, then we were manually keying in all the journal entries.
Oh, phew,
well,
yeah.
now, the new system, we purchased as part of the project the cash receipting module, which is really meant more for like a point of sale transaction. But Arlington Heights uses it for their ActiveNet transactions, and so we added an example to work off of, and they're using it
good,
too.
yeah.
They use ActiveNet and BSNA. And so you just key, first of all, we built templates of all of our deposits, so you don't have to key anything, and all of the accounts are already there. You just key the dollar amounts of the revenue in, and it fund balances it for you.
Oh, nice.
So you don't enter the cash account in, it fund balances out to where the cash was supposed to go. So you don't ever, it's been really great. So I'm really, really pleased with that, and that's been a huge efficiency just in our office. So getting all the templates set up, there's some front end work you have to do to have that ready to go, but
it's a one-time thing, so
huge
once
time
you're,
saver.
yeah.
Yeah, and then similar with the vendor templates, when you pull up a vendor to pay them, if you always pay them the same thing, the template's built into their vendor file and it just pulls it right onto the screen and you just put the dollar amounts in for this check. Whereas before we had vendor templates in Excel that you'd go into and fill out and print out and then hand key into the AS400. So it's much better. So, I mean, no fault to the AS400. We've used it and loved it for a long time. I will miss it. I will miss Carla. But I think I think the new system's going to do what we want it to do. And I think, there's some growing pains, like the change in the chart of accounts was huge. Getting all staff up to speed on using it. And Mark over here has been so thankful. I've been so thankful. Mark has sent multiple emails about how great his experience has been. So that's been nice because it's hard, change is hard. So for everyone, and then to ask staff to input their purchase orders electronically instead of forwarding us papers and things like that has been a little bit challenging, but overall everybody's excited to use it. So
Good.
Anyway, I'll get on with my reports. I don't want to spend any more
sorry, I
time
didn't mean
talking,
to-
but the treasurer's report really hasn't changed at all. It's the same exact format you've always seen. You can see the total cash that we had on hand at the end of January for this day was $10,225,000, 907.67. I didn't write a script this time because I didn't know exactly how to write it, so I'm a little disjointed, and it's been a very challenging couple weeks, so I apologize.
You sound organized.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We're impressed.
I did make that transfer into Illinois funds. I think I might have done that at the end of December with Dick helped us do that. And since then, I'm going to start working with Park Pool. You can see our our Commerce CDs. You can see the interest rate we're getting on our Commerce CDs is 2.25%, but the interest rate we're getting at Illinois funds, which is a liquid fund, you can take it in and out without having to lock it into a CD, is 2.42. So as those CDs at Commerce mature, I'm going to analyze the Illinois funds interest rate, and I'm just going to move that cash over there to wait and see if we can get better CD interest rates because they're not really comparable at the moment. So Illinois fund, we got $5,000 in interest from Illinois funds just for the month of January. So I was really happy with that. It's considering, our total interest for the whole park district was like 60 last year. So, I'm like, this is great. So,
That's 1 month's worth.
really happy with that. So we have 9.1 million invested in interest-bearing accounts at the moment. Our interfund loans have not changed this period. There's really no interfund loans. And then I was also able to produce the same information I usually do about disbursements for the month. So this is a summary of all three of the paid accounts payable by fund in the vendor payments. You'll see those do match if you really went through and added them up. And then the 2 payrolls that we performed in January before the transition to the new software for total disbursements of funds of $440,000. And with that, I present the treasurer's report to you for approval.
I move we accept the treasurer's report for audit.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the point? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries unanimously.
I was really pleased. There really wasn't a lot of activity in the capital budgets this month, so that saved me some time to go through them. But we do have the new capital budget, the 2019 there, and there was no transactions in it this month at all, so everything that was on here happened in December. in the 2018 capital budget, there was a little bit of activity. We had transactions, expenses in the tributes and donations line. And we also made our first payment on the James Room project. So I guess, was that for design work?
Yeah.
Probably. And then we also purchased the Grossback house out of the 2018 capital budget in the month of January.
Great, so that's settled, that's done?
That one is done.
That one's done, great.
The Grossbach house is finalized. I've received a copy of all the paperwork from Matt, so.
Super.
That one's done. Now, we're still working on the demo, so we budgeted enough here for the purchase and the demo. So we're hoping that covers it, and then we'll adjust the budget when the demo's complete.
The two Main Street houses, we have a draft contract from Matt, that we're presenting to the owner.
Great. And change the look of that area
Yep.
Absolutely.
substantially.
Yeah.
In the 2017 capital budget, we had expenditures on construction crew projects, and a small amount was paid for the sediment basin project, and that hit two account lines. It hit the from the City of Urbana contribution account, and it also hit the Crystal Lake improvements account down in the contingency section. We're still carrying a negative balance in the City of Urbana contribution, and that's still related to the I just lost the word. The adjustment we do at the end of the fiscal year for
Retainage?
the retainage, yeah. So that's why that hasn't reversed yet, because we just haven't spent enough on the project. I imagine there'll probably, at some point when we pay that retainage out, that'll clear itself. But that really won't be till the project is over. So unless there's a lot more spending on the project, that may just continue to be that way. And then the only spending out of the 2016 was to spend out that last little remaining $197 that was left over that we spent on the James Room. And then all that's left to spend in this budget is the $500,000 transfer for Crystal Lake Park improvements that we'll start spending on the next phase of construction. Now, Andy and Derek have some other capital projects updates.
Yeah, I'll start with the Phillips Playground. If you've been by there recently, you'll notice that most of it has been removed, the old playground. The support beams, the uprights are still there, but that's all that's remaining from our old playground at the moment. We were originally anticipating delivery of our new playground in the first week of March. We are actually going to receive it by the end of this week. Which is good. It'll be delivered to our Hickory storage site. It'll give Keith even more time to go through everything that we receive, make sure we have all of our equipment as we should, work through the instructions as well, and get himself more familiarized with the install that will be happening once weather begins to cooperate a little bit more.
So he's the guy to call if you can't put together something from IKEA.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
He'll help.
Or your
Slot
Legos.
A and
It's funny you say that, though, because we did Compound Playground from Denmark, and he struggled with those.
Yeah.
oh, with IKEA Swedes, you know.
Nancy, we also, actually it was Corky at State Conference, talked to one of the playground reps, and it sounds like that recycle program may be a good fit for Crystal Lake Park.
Oh, great,
We'll get
good.
more information.
Good.
Additionally, the two rocks at Phillips, the climbing rocks, might be able to be resurfaced and reused.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
So we're looking into that as well.
What is the recycle program?
That's where playgrounds get repurposed and taken to places where they need a playground, oftentimes overseas. And it sounds like the company that does it actually comes in and cuts it at grade and then re-sleeves it. So we're left with essentially the footings.
Company's called Play Around the World or something like that.
That's great.
It is great.
Yeah.
With our James Room kitchen remodel, I don't have any negative news to report on the schedule.
I was just
We're
cringing.
still looking to be moving in early March. Cabinets are probably about 75% installed right now. The room's looking really great. As more of the puzzle comes together, it looks nicer and nicer. Tomorrow should be the last day for the install of the cabinets. Once that's completed, the company for the countertops will be able to come in and do their measurements and place the order for our new tops. And that will be, what we're told, 3 weeks until we receive those, and those can get installed. Clp Rehab Phase Two. We received an exhibit of basically, I would say, a suite of options for treatment of stormwater in Crystal Lake Park. We'll be meeting, having a phone conference later this week to discuss with ERA those options with their opinion of cost that was also delivered. And we'll kind of, at that point, begin to whittle down what we think will work best for our site, help our water quality the most, and is most cost effective for our overall budget. We would anticipate that would then be included into our 25% conceptual design, which should be delivered sometime early March as well. And the last thing I wanted to mention was our saline rock riffle stream bank stabilization project. I think Tim calls the longest running project in the history of the Urbana Park District. Derek and I have been working with the project manager at IDNR to set the basis for responsibilities for an upcoming IGA that would ensure that 100% of that funding is through IDNR, not the Park District funds. And that IDNR maintains a role throughout the project where they're providing site observation, reviewing and approving contracts, pay applications, and are available during the construction portion as well as project closeout. And UPD will, as we've mentioned before, be the procuring agent. So we'll actually take the bid out and come to the board for final approval for that general contractor. But again, everything will be reviewed by our design engineer and IDNR before we bring it to you all. So hopefully that IGA will be in front of you in the next couple months, and we'll bid this summer, and construction would then happen this fall.
But don't hold your breath.
So that's all, unless there's questions.
Okay, that moves us on to the executive director's report.
Great.
Tim.
Well, start out, sorry, my throat's not real good tonight, so I might need the microphone. Staff's doing a really great job. Well, it's been a long, cold winter, so we're really pleased at all the work that the operations group is doing. Planning is doing a terrific job on a lot of great projects. Really excited with the administrative group, obviously with the new accounting system. They're just really knocking it out. Appreciate that. Rec staff in every area is doing some really exciting, neat things, so we're really pleased. As you know, several of us attended the IAPD IPRA conference this year. It was terrific, great sessions. We'll be doing a brown bag wrap-up later in March to go over all of our conference notes and findings. Had a good chance to meet a new artist while we were in Chicago. Janet Henderson's going to be working with us, likely bringing 2 pieces down later this summer to Urbana, so it was great to meet her. iParks meetings went really well. Our funds are very stable. As you know, the Urbana Park District's, I believe, the 2nd or 3rd highest paying member, so obviously we have a lot of interest in that program and what we're doing. Right now, we're working with a lot of our customer benefits, trying to bring more opportunities to the groups that we serve, and certainly promote more safety matters through our educational program. Don't want to steal Roger's thunder, but the IAPD annual meeting went off without a hitch. There were no surprisses. He may have more to
quite
add.
exciting.
It was. I bet it was just thrilling as usual, right?
It was. I stayed awake the entire time.
I didn't want to take that away from you, but please revisit it. Update IAPD breakfast, as you know, is March 11th, the legislative breakfast. We'll be having it here in this room. Earlier, we wanted to have it at Phillips, but just thought with the projects there, might be better to have it here. We could certainly do that another year. Some concerns, obviously, that we're facing and looking at is increases to minimum wage. Hopefully, you're all tracking that. While we openly understand that, our current minimum wages aren't really able to support a full-time or a full family and a growing family, it's probably going to be very detrimental to us if it goes up as planned. It sounds like they're looking at stair-stepping it in, so it wouldn't be all in one year, but we don't know yet. We're still waiting for the
I heard a lot
final
about
vote.
it on the radio today, and not only are they talking about stair stepping. I mean, I think stair stepping is
Right.
just that is in the initial proposal, but they're also looking at a
Age
differentiation,
breakout?
as an age
Yeah.
breakout and a differentiation between Chicago and downstate.
Right, we're hoping for
So,
that.
I mean, we would be winners essentially in all three of those
Correct.
categories. But, I mean, unfortunately, I think that by the time it gets to $15, it's not gonna be a living wage either.
Right.
So it's, I mean.
That's what our kind of analysis is.
Yeah.
If everything goes up, we're all
Yeah.
kind of moving up the ladder. I understand
Right, yeah.
the whys, but not sure how it's going to work for
Right.
us.
But
Go
my,
ahead.
sorry to
No,
interrupt you.
No, that's fine.
I feel like we have less to worry about than just a straight across the board. I mean, I think
Oh,
people are really
absolutely.
bringing up a lot of these problems in different areas that need to be addressed. And I think, I mean, we still have to stay on our toes, but I don't think we have to worry about being run over by a $15 steamroller.
Right. I was pleased to see Channel 3 News, Jason Hanselman was on. They showed people working over the weekend at the State House. So
Really?
Yeah, he was front and center twice. They did a real big close-up. So thank you, Jason, for representing us and
Cool.
trying to bring the best we can get. Certainly, there'll be opportunity to have talking points at the legislative breakfast. So if you have thoughts or ideas, please pass them on to Michael or I. And lastly, we always invite Savoy, Rantoul, Tolono, Mahomet, kind of our area districts to kind of bring folks together. So we're pleased about that. Several of our staff attended a terrific program at the Morton Arboretum on forest therapy. I think I sent on to you all a little video if you had a chance to take a look at that. I'm really excited with the Nature Center staff. They're looking to implement a program like that yet this year as a trial. So we're excited about that. Derek and I also attended a session at conference on horticulture therapy, which was very related, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for us there with hort therapy, both with our, all of our garden programs and new things we could do, and also working with special rec. The big news, as you all heard, the OSLAD grant came through, so we're very pleased about that $400,000. That'll be a real terrific add to the park. We also have some additional Urbana Parks Foundation funds that can be brought over, so we're real excited, working on identifying how many of those dollars are available. Several of them came in pledges in multi-year, so we'll be adding that up and seeing how much we can add to that project. It's likely that we might have an ITEP, OSLAD, and a DNR saline project going at overlapping times. So for us, that's great news. We love it. It shows progress and that we really mean business in renovating the park. We did likely might get an article in the News Gazette, did some follow-up. We had some help through the foundation. Somebody at the News Gazette was alerted that we got a grant, which, we do a news release, we do all of our regular stuff, but I was able to talk to them today, and I think they're going to do a story. So I'm not sure why the disconnect on the news releases and everything that marketing sends to the Gazette, but I guess.
Yeah, the Forest Preserve District has had
Right,
theirs, Champaign got
right,
theirs in today.
Front page.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So hopefully we'll get a follow-up article about us. And I did pitch all those other projects, so it might be more than just a grant announcement. Staff's working on a potential art fair. We've been working in the Arts and Culture Committee for a couple of years now, and that's something that's been on our list of, gee, we'd love to do that. It'd be really neat. So we're looking at dates, likely could be in August of this year. So really appreciate 40 North and the work Janet and staff and all of us are doing. Could be a nice addition to Crystal Lake Park. Another special event I was part of this last month was at the Center of Health, Aging, and Disability. We had Deb Reardons from Clark Lindsay and Julie Pride at Public Health hosted kind of a neat event. It was about a 2.5-hour event. We had about 20 of our committee members there, and we did a bunch of scenario planning. There were 4 different scenarios that really looked at what's going to happen in 2030, and it sort of maps out where do we think we'll be with our older population, health and wellness, housing, environment, and so we went through a lot of strategizing. Certainly my takeaway was, the more planning we do, the more resiliency we build in, and the more partnerships that we can establish will definitely help us as we go. So appreciate that. It was extra work they put together, and it was very successful. CC first, Champaign County first. Unfortunately, our trip to Springfield for lobbying on January 30th got canceled due to the cold weather. We're trying to reschedule. But the good news, promoting the KRT and the expansion of that is in that top tier of projects. We also are pushing to get that to go to Washington, D.C. for the lobbying effort. That'll likely be later this year. So hopefully we can get some attention and maybe get some help on that project. I've been talking with the new department head at RST department at U of I, Carla Santos. She's the new head. We'll be setting up a brown bag with our staff and their key staff and new faculty to, again, get to know people, focus on internships, research projects, and class projects. I think Carla's real interested in trying to get the students integrated into the real world system. So if there's ways we can work with them, come up with projects that help them and help us as well.
Tim, if I could just comment.
Sure, please do.
She's wonderful to work with.
Great, I haven't met her yet.
She may still be the director of the European Union Center on campus, but that is actually part of the university's strategic plan going forward. That was a big part that my former Dean Kangelaris, now Provost Kangelaris, is pretty adamant about. And so we had a launch 2 Fridays ago, I guess, where they had a public open house. And that community engagement piece is really a strong component of what the university wants to move forward with.
It must be, because it was the first thing she talked about.
Yeah.
And so I'm really pleased because, there's a lot of things we could do together, give them experience. Maybe we have lots of what I call little studies. Obviously, if we have big needs, we would need to go to a professional group, but I think there could be a lot of, back and forth sharing. So we look forward to that. And again, new faculty with new interests, so we'll get to know everybody and take advantage of that opportunity. The Community Coalition, I have asked Tracy Parsons to join us at our March UPDAC meeting to provide an update for us and kind of give an overview of what we've been working on. So I'm pleased he's willing to do that. Certainly, if any of you would like to join us, would love to have you. I've kind of sort of vacillated between should he come to the board or UPDAC, but we have so many new and very engaged UPDAC people that I really think it'd be a good message. We give you all regular ongoing updates, and Elsie's dialed in pretty deep with the coalition too, so but thought it'd be a good option for UPDAC. A couple of things we're doing. The Walk as One is coming up on February 21st, and that's directly tied to the unofficial event, the drinking event in Campus Town that's scheduled March 1st. Local U of I police said they think they're getting a better handle on that event. It seems to be sort of shrinking in interest, but they're always afraid of that perfect, warm, sunny day that everybody, kind of goes there. So ongoing efforts to get information about safety and what people should be thinking about or doing on that day is really critical. You may have heard the shooting numbers are up. We're never happy about that. There are a couple of shots in Urbana, one near Victory Park, the other in the Scottswood neighborhood near Weaver Park. So obviously we're very attuned to that. We'd like to see those numbers go down. So we'll keep working on that. I think the last couple months I mentioned a athletic study working with our athletic staff and the Champaign Park District with the Office of Recreation Park Resources, or PR. Really excited about maybe a new way to look at athletics and how do we engage with both the young people and their parents. So again, it might be a good opportunity to get UPDAC engaged, to learn about some of these new, maybe they're not new ideas, but they're new ideas that are being put into practice. And then Corky and I and Joe and Jamil at the Champaign Park District are really interested to have an outcome. For example, like an adventure camp where you have kids sign up for it and they're going to do a different thing. Maybe that would be tied to that concept. So I think it's real important to get something on the ground, not just talk about it, but actually get something in place. So we'll keep working on that and bring that back to you all. KRT planning is going terrific. We've got a lot of things going with that group, but one of the things coming up, March 29th, Mary Ellen Woolner's arranged for Amy Camp to come to Champaign-Urbana area. She's an expert on trail towns and trails in general, and I think the plan is to do kind of a workshop with our steering working committee, our partnership, and then I think Mary Ellen's trying to get a private session Saturday set up for their board to learn a little more in depth. So it's a great opportunity for us to, learn some tricks and how do we engage with the local towns and really start bringing, the idea of trail town to our area. So we're real excited. Obviously, it's visitors, it's economic development, it's tourism, but it's a way to, really talk and touch on the economic aspects. Certainly the environmental and the fun and all the things we can do on trail networks is great, but making sure that there's an economic benefit for the locals is really critical. So
Yeah, I think if they can see the ripples that are coming out
exactly.
from that and,
Right.
and how far those ripples are
Right.
going to actually
We agree.
reach will be.
And, we've seen other states with terrific programs. Kentucky's got a really dynamite program and, they've got a really engaged trail town program. So we can do it too. So we're excited about that. And I can answer any questions if you have anything about other projects or areas.
No questions? All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Moving on to the president's report. I don't have anything special to add. I'm not sure if we're going to be having a March 5th study session. Allison was polling the board. So
We have 3. So
you do it?
Yep.
Okay, all right. And then the regular board meeting will be on the 12th of March. So the day after the IAPD legislative breakfast. And we're likely to have some bid approvals and also the wage and salary recommendations for the upcoming budget.
Are we going to have a presentation for the legislative breakfast?
A presentation?
I think as in the past, we've invited all of our presidents to sort of make a pitch, from their district's perspective. And then generally IAPD goes over the formal platform. And then I would expect our legislators to want to step up and maybe speak to the issues.
Have any of them committed to the breakfast yet?
We're communicating with their offices. It's in their workings. We don't have a list yet, though. So that's fairly typical. I think it's likely we'll get several here, but
I think at least one had.
I
don't remember
thought
who it
Scott
was,
Bennett
but
had
Kelsey said
told
one
us
had.
he was on board. So, but it's, their schedules are kind of dicey, and we'll see how it goes. But we tend to invite the wide, group of everybody's representatives. So they're certainly all welcome, and we'd love to engage with everybody.
And also a reminder that March 14th, the Urbana Parks Foundation annual dinner.
Well, that's a big week.
Pardon?
That's a big week. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday.
It's a very big
it
week.
is, yeah.
Moving on to liaison reports, finance study group did meet, but we've since had the BOSA study session, I think, and oh wait, that was in between.
Yeah, it was in between.
Pardon?
I think, did we meet last Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my
Friday.
recollection.
And there's not a whole lot to
at
report out.
this point, no.
Yeah, so, and we will be meeting again.
It was early April.
Early
It was
April.
Friday in April,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's my recollection.
So, the policy study group, is it?
We have not met.
No, it's there, okay. And Parks Foundation.
Foundation, because of the way the calendar fell, we had 2 meetings since our last board meeting. The first one, back in January, the foundation released some funds to, what do you call the things?
The sound system for
No,
the...
I wasn't
oh,
thinking of that.
Gotcha.
The decorating.
The
stuff.
banners
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
logos?
On
the showmobile?
On the showmobile. So that is a good thing, and that was generous of them. They also have contributed to a new sound system that's better than what we have, and so that was a good thing. This last one, we spent a lot of time talking about investment policy, and they're going to come up with one. And then you've already mentioned the foundation dinner. If you donated to kids who received scholarships for the district, The splash event is this Saturday from 6 to 8.
It's 5 to 8.
5 to 8. I had that written down.
At the Indoor Aquatics Center.
Yeah, at the Indoor Aquatics Center.
Everyone's invited. Bring your families, kids.
If you want to come, it's a great chance to meet some folks. The News Gazette is going to be there. They're going to have a photographer there.
Nice.
So,
Natalie's working.
we're hitting it big. No, it was someone. Well, Natalie worked on that one. Someone else worked on the other.
Great.
So the other thing that you might want to put on your calendar is May 17th. When the boat drunks will be here for the big barn bash at Hudson Farms. So that's a fundraiser, and a good time will be had by all.
Yep.
So.
Bring 10 friends.
Yes, yes, or more. And if it rains, we can go inside. So
Right.
that's it.
Thank you. And lastly, UpDeck Planning Study Group. Is there anything to report there?
Not a thing.
I think
Okay.
we're planned out for this half year.
Yep.
Alrighty, that moves us along to old business, and for us, we can resume our goals review.
Right. Let's see. I think over our last.
If Tim's
Go
voice
ahead.
will hold up.
I think it will. I think our last 2 study sessions, we focused, or over the last 3 study sessions, 2 of them, we've done a goal review. I think we're at our last section, or last 2 sections. I think we're at trails and human resources. We'll just go through those. Obviously, we're very engaged with trails, so we have a number of projects. We've got the Urbana Park District Trails Master Plan, high priority projects. Certainly Crystal Lake Park is one of those. We've got a few sections of our trails that we're focusing on. One that we did that really wasn't on the priority list, but we were able to approach it was at Leal Park. We had a very bad system there. It was really in poor maintenance, and we had to do something there. So we've been able to upgrade that one. So we're pleased with that. We continue to look for any and all bicycle or pedestrian grants. Certainly OSLAD with our current Crystal Lake work has a little bit of path connection. Nothing major, but getting us to and from the different features. Let's see, we're submitted an application to be designated as a bike-friendly business. We've achieved that, so we're very pleased. We would love to expand that to our other buildings. I think, if I'm right, Corky, we did buildings. Is that correct?
Yeah, but we are
Oh, you
still
worked on-
working as trying to make the district
Right,
as a whole
right.
a business, which is not
It's-
typically done,
right.
so.
There's not really a carve-out for government units or park districts, so it's more businesses. So we were able to apply, and we did receive. I think we'll just keep doing that. Definitely, we're moving on the KRT with our analysis for the extended area into Urbana, as well as where we're working right now. A lot of effort and work on the KRT. We continue to meet. We have monthly meetings with that group.
Tim,
Yep.
what is the, is there an end line, an end time line for when that report or when that analysis is going to be finished?
Well, we hope to start it. That'll be the first start.
Well,
There's been some funding, I guess, delays or a slow start.
Okay.
But, typically it's a few years,
Okay.
before the
All right.
project window needs to close out. So we should have plenty of time. Although, I think we're going to need all that time because trail work, as we know, is very slow, and just getting information and sharing it all is very complicated. So we'll need all that time. We're definitely working with Champaign Park District, pushing westward. As I mentioned previously, we've been over to Normal to look at the Constitution Trail and how successful their 52-mile trail network is in their community. Certainly we have options to go west, maybe even south toward Monticello. So I think there's a lot of possibilities. There's changes now with that rail line. So now is the opportune time to be watching. Our understanding is that DNR is keeping an eye on the Federal Register. So if those corridors are up for rail banking, DNR would step in and do the formal process. So we need to stay in touch with DNR, though, to make sure that they're still watching and on top of that. Let's see. Last one, we've been looking at Crystal Lake Park, the analysis, as you know, for the shared road system. I think we have some good outcomes where we'll be able to likely implement that, have a share of the road approach at Crystal Lake. So we're excited about that. Any other questions about trails that are either on the list or we haven't talked about? Again, we're trying to work on our in-town trails, working with the city. We're definitely promoting wayfinding, telling people where they can go, how far things are, if you're going this direction or that direction. So there's some work being done on that. So we anticipate that coming out in the near future, at least information about that. We'll move on to human resources. As you know, the HR aspect of what we do is really critically important. We hire a lot of people that are seasonal and part-time staff. Obviously, we have less full-time staff, but it's a lot of effort to keep everything moving. As you know, we did pretty well, came out pretty well with our 2019 insurance package, so we're very pleased. We got some better pricing on that and are still able to offer some additional benefits for dental and eyes and life insurance, things like that. We're engaged working with a staff committee on a full compensation survey. One thing we already have talked about, though, is we need to anticipate the state minimum wage change and how that would affect us. And it could be likely, we've been working over the last several years to get up to market and get most of our staff, just about all of our full-time staff, in a much better position. I'm curious to see how this will impact us and if we'll take a few steps back in any of those areas. Again, that's not of our making, but certainly we need to plan and be able to react to that. Let's see. We continue to look at working with each of our staff for development plans. Basically, what educational opportunities, training, any special, it could be teams within work groups or any special initiatives that come out of our staff groups. We have a wonderful group of managers and supervisors, and I think they're really willing to work with employees at any level. So we're excited about that. Do want to mention there's been a new, I call it sort of a mentoring program, our customer service group put together. So many of us have been matched up with new staff. Terrific idea. I wish I would have thought of it. Glad we have a customer service group that is. And so each of us that have mentors or staff that we're assigned to will be meeting with them, getting to know them, talking about our work history here as a way to educate and encourage and lift up each other on that. I think we've shared our staffing levels report earlier this year. I think we've identified a few key areas that we need to really pay attention to. So whenever, as we can and as we can implement additions, we definitely will be doing that.
That too will have, the
Absolutely.
wage changes are going to have an impact.
That was one of our first thought. We just did that report and identified, I think, 3 key areas. There's many areas we need help in, but obviously in custodial, aquatics, and in natural areas. Those were the 3 that really stuck out, that are really growing and we're serving a lot of people. How will that new pay impact our ability to pick up new employees as well as pay the ones we have currently? So we very likely will be challenged with that. We had a very successful fall retreat out at Allerton Park at the 4-H grounds this year. It was terrific. We'll have a staff group planning for the 2019 event. Obviously, we're continuing working on all safety priorities and training, and Alex does a great job of keeping us on our annual schedule for required trainings that are regular, annual, or every other year. We continue to update and look at our employee policy manual as an annual process, and as well as our safety standard operating procedures. And also continuing just overall to encourage our UPD safety culture that we've really put together and enhanced here.
Do you feel like you've seen a change over the years?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Good.
Totally different
Good.
outfit.
Mhm.
I would admit myself, for our safety, I would probably have said, oh, it's very important, but could I name 10 things that we're actually doing to improve it? Now I think all of us could. I think many staff could do that. So, yeah, we've kind of gone from not really visible, talking a lot about it, now to implementing. And it has become a culture. We think of it, we talk about it, so it reinforces what we're doing here.
I sort of feel like this building was the
Yes,
start
I agree.
of that, because we started looking at, we know all the terrible things we were doing.
Yep.
But there wasn't much we could do about all
That's
those
for
terrible
sure.
things.
It was our biggest
But now we had a
weakness.
brand new
Right.
stage, and we've really
Right.
gone
Yep.
a long distance to
Yep.
make it a really safer.
Yep.
And I have the feeling that the workers are really interested in it. They don't see it as an additional burden. They see it as something that's
Yeah.
that's
They take pride in
interesting
it.
and useful
Yeah.
and helpful.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think at the core, it's what they're aware of anyway, and they really adhere to that. So having all the supports with the equipment and the tools and the programs really reinforce that. So certainly, there's a dollar amount you could attach to it, but I think it's worth it. We've definitely
Oh, yeah.
reduced our number of injuries. Just working in the iPark side, when you see some of the major accidents and things, like some things, could be a tornado, that's different, but,
can't do much about that.
sort of safety-related issues, there's no good news there. And so anything you can do on the other side of that, you're well ahead of the game.
This is kind of not quite on the same track there, but one of the workshops that I went to on the commissioner track at the conference was on a crisis management plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered, is that a thing that we have at this point?
Yeah, I think, did we attend that? Or were you on a different, because I went to a session too, and they talked about that, and I thought, that's something we should revisit. I think I talked to somebody in our group about that, about are we ready if something
Yeah.
happened? And, we've got things in place, but it's definitely something we should review and keep at the top of the file.
One of the things that they were making sure is that what are commissioners supposed to do in that point?
Yes.
Not say anything.
Right,
So,
exactly.
in fact, I went to three workshops where
Yep.
they said, just
Right.
don't say anything.
Well,
So-
and it's interesting because it's usually not your normal, response. We usually want to share things.
Yeah.
But you have to be very careful at a time like that.
It's
because
actually,
it's fast moving and you don't have all the information and
Right.
right. It is actually going to be a goal for Mark next year is to get a crisis communication plan together.
good.
Yeah, I think it's really critical, just to know what to say and not to say. Because at that moment, you're not thinking of the big picture and, how everything could possibly play out. So every step at every point is really critical.
And I would assume we would be in that cycle somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So there'll be probably some new information or a training module we can bring to you all too.
Great.
And then I think last thing on that last page, on the blank page there, continue to promote and enhance UPD, cultural competencies, education and training. Obviously being aware of our very diverse community here in Urbana and this area, it's pretty obvious to us that the more we do in that area, our staff will be more prepared and will be more engaging with the general population. So we look forward to that.
Also had a diversity team that we put together and met several times this year between
Yep.
Urbana Park District, Champaign Park District, and Champaign County Forest Preserve. So it's a couple staff from each agency that get together and work on how we can be more diverse or staff trainings or those kinds of things, so.
So that concludes a review of our last year's goals. Obviously, we're going to be moving into next year, fiscal year goals. But I think, just in a quick review, there's virtually all of our goals have been achieved. There are maybe one or two areas we've got new direction and shifted slightly, but we tend to stay on track. Likewise, if you're thinking of goals for next year, please let me know. We're starting to make our list, and I think we've got some good starts and good ideas, but if there's something you think's critical, let us know and we'll work it into the program. Thanks.
Great, thanks very much. There was no old business removed from the consent agenda, so we're on to new business, and the first item is action to award the annual printing.
Great. I think Mark's here with good news.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
On behalf of Fallon Parleski, graphic designer, and myself, we recommend that you accept the bid from Indiana Printing and Publishing to publish or print and distribute the 2019-2020 program guide at a cost not to exceed $35,000. This program guide will be in all color and with a glossy cover. The budgeted for this year for the program guide was $31,000. So this is a slight increase. Roughly, we worked it out, it'll be about a $1,200 increase per issue for the 3 issues. One issue will be 72 pages, 2 issues will be 80 pages. We opened the bid process on December 11th, requesting bids. Those bids, the bidding process closed on January 14th at 2 p.m. We received 4 bids. The memo outlines the 4 bids we received. We opened those sealed bids at the time on the 14th at 2 p.m. at the cottage, and we decided to recommend Indiana Printing and Publishing to do the printing and distributing of the program guide. This is the same group that is doing this year's program guide. They do quality work, and as the memos illustrates, at the best price that we can get. So again, we recommend approval.
That was my question, if this was the same company as
Yes.
last year.
Yes.
Well, I move to award the bid for printing the 2019-2020 seasonal program guide to Indiana Printing and Publishing for 2 80-page print runs and 1 72-page print run with a total price not to exceed $35,000.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the matter? We should take a roll call vote on this. This time we'll commence at the right. With
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously with all 5 commissioners voting.
That's an anniversary present for me. Today is my 1-year anniversary.
Ah, happy anniversary.
Does it seem fitting that we made you sit through an hour and 10 minutes of meeting?
My pleasure, thank you.
Happy anniversary.
How has your first year been, Mark? How has your first year been?
In some ways, it seems like I've been here for several years. In other ways, it seemed like I've been here for 2 weeks. Very, very engaging work, very rewarding work, and I just love my job here. Thank you.
Awesome.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, I can see that you've made a difference in a lot of things, so
Oh,
thank you.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now on
Okay,
to
well,
toilets.
Highs and lows.
Now we're going from paper down to toilets.
Yeah, so
Sorry, I just wasn't happy about that.
Andy's good word.
if you were happy with your service of our portable toilet, I hope you will still continue to be after this.
We can keep our service.
Oh, my
Our
goodness.
current contract for portable toilets, it was on a 3-year bid, expires this March. So we put out a new bid, made a couple of adjustments to the document. In the previous bid, we requested just a single base bid for 3 years. With our bid that we have before you tonight, we actually did a 1-year base bid with alternatives for the 2nd year and the 3rd year. So that was to allow if we didn't really get pricing that we deemed favorable, we could just enter into contract for 1 year, rebid it next year, and hope to get some better pricing. We did add, previously we had 9 parks that received portable toilet service. We did add the Weaver Park Trailhead to our bid document this year, and that will be included in our base contract for the 3 years. And then we added a new category so that we could obtain pricing on our special event drop-offs. So it's 24 to 72 hours accessible portable toilet. Primarily we use it for neighborhood nights that don't have any restroom service. And as events continue to grow, we'll have that ability to continue to order more of those special event type drop-offs. We did receive 2 bids That's from our local portable toilet companies. The low bid is the Kemper Industrial Equipment Incorporated, which is the Midwest Potty House. That is our current contract for the 3 years that staff have been pleased with their level of service. We're recommending to go ahead and award the alternative 1 and alternative 2 for the additional 2 years. Pricing was the low bid for all 3 of those options. We're also recommending to assign a 20% contingency. This is for increased usage and demand of portable toilets. We'll have that ability to add more units themselves or add more servicing to units that are currently in existence over that 3-year period. Unless there's any questions, we are recommending to award that base bid and alternatives 1 and 2 to Kemper Industrial Equipment with a 20% contingency.
I move to award the portable toilet bid and alternatives 1 and 2 for $86,686 to Kemper Industrial Equipment Incorporated of Champaign, Illinois, with a 20% contingency of $17,337.20 for additional services over the 3 years.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the matter? Hearing none, let's do a roll call voted from the left.
Aye.
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 And that again carries unanimously with all 5 commissioners voting. Action to approve revision number 1 to the 2019 capital improvement budget.
Got some information on the Meadowbrook House. Yep. While Derek's getting us set up, just a little intro. Staff's been working on what needs to be done at the Meadowbrook House. As you know, Judy moved out. She had lived there for 30 years, which is kind of a surprise when I...
Doesn't seem that long.
It doesn't seem that long. So when we took a look at the property inside, obviously it needs some attention. Staff did want to convey the message. We've continually worked on the outside and the exterior of the building. So many of the sort of improvements we're recommending now are things that you'd want to do in between renters. I think our other key point to note is, many years ago we determined that the Meadowbrook House would remain in our long-term assets. It was part of the farmstead story that the barn, corn crib, and the house would be retained. There are a number of other outbuildings and smaller buildings over the years we've taken down at the park to sort of preserve that character and open up spaces. So I think the staff recommendation, and I think you'll certainly have opportunities for comment, now would be the time to approach this work. And the goal is to get it ready for not only the next renter, but also to preserve the property so that it'll be in good working order into the next 100 years.
Yeah, and when was that house built?
Well,
We don't know.
Roger's done some research.
We don't know.
Before 1920?
Well, my guess is that the core of the house was built in the 1870s.
Oh, really?
There was an addition, almost
that
like a
kitchen.
second house.
Right.
It was glommed onto it
Right.
in the late 19-teens or early 1920s.
Oh, my.
So it's old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And, our major renovation, I'm sure the owners through time did work, but things we can point to, I know when Bobby and Tom lived there, Tom was a contractor, so he did work. He rewired many things in the house, so that was part of their contribution. Certainly Judy kept up with things. We did repairs while we were there, but, I think you'll see we wanted to show some photos. It's places you probably haven't been into recently, so it'll give you a little, idea of what it looks like.
The basement would give me the heebie-jeebies.
And
We don't even have
our
pictures of that.
next renter likely is Derek and Mia will be moving there. And so
great.
Derek, so he won't have to say it, I'll say it. Obviously, there's an uncomfortable feeling about improvements that would benefit, somebody. But I think what I continue to say is it doesn't matter who lives there.
That's right.
We
That
would
needs
have
to be
to
done.
do
Yep.
certain things, and
Yep.
there's a window of time that we can get caught up and do this. So
it's just an added bonus that it's there.
it is, and then, you know,
That's fair enough.
we also get the benefit of, you know, having a staff ambassador right at the park.
Maybe.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if people have questions or need help, or, you know, there's so that trade-off. So it has worked well over the years.
Do you need my seat?
I'll just squeeze over here, but I'm gonna need those.
We just had this one thing, so we didn't think it was worth flipping everybody tonight. For that, usually we reposition everybody for
Well,
a
you know, that was-
visual, but we had guests and other
Well, they're getting
activities.
that set up. I thought that it was unfortunate the way we had the meeting set up for the study session, because it's awful
Oh.
for us to sit with our backs
Yeah,
to the
to the
audience. I mean,
audience.
and you may not have known that
Yeah.
there were gonna be that many people there.
I did not, right,
But I think if we can face,
Correct.
the audience, it's better.
certainly.
And even if we all have to scooch our chairs around to see and, you know,
Okay.
sort of jiggle things for the presentation. I mean, is that-
Would you
okay.
prefer to remain at this end, so you could always have, or,
Yes,
okay,
yes, yeah,
that's clear.
absolutely.
We were trying to set it up for your viewing, but we agree.
Yeah, I
If
think
you-
the audience is more important, really. I
Because
mean, 'cause
then you're
we're
turning
movable.
around and.
We
right.
have wheels.
Okay, good enough, we'll do that.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, I think we're set up now. So we'll go through some recent improvements, and then current state of the interior, and then what we're looking at doing here in the near future and beyond. So you'll see in the first attachment after our budget revision memo is a more detailed list. It's really from the last 10 years of projects that are over $500. So it's totaling a little bit over $62,000 in the last 10 years. And as Tim had mentioned, it's really focusing primarily on the exterior of the house, partially to make sure that the tenant at the time was not living in a construction zone.
And I guess I should point out, because I did a lot of the research on this list, that there was many thousands, probably $20,000 of other expenses that were under $500 that we also put into the house since in the same 10-year time.
Just like
period.
routine, ongoing
Yeah, just,
maintenance
you know,
type.
HVAC
Right.
tune-ups and stuff like that.
Filters,
You know, just that we've
rollouts.
been taking care of the house. It's just, this is just the higher dollar level stuff that we've put into it in the last 10 years.
Yeah, and this doesn't include staff costs, just with this
Right.
list.
Yeah, that's what I was
So this is a low
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
estimate for the
Well,
last 10
she's
years.
an old lady.
Direct
It's
cost.
a lot of help.
We'll jump into some of our interior pictures. This is a plaster issue in the kitchen that was from water damage. That chimney has since been capped, sealed, and with the roofing, it's completely covered now. But as you can see, we've had significant damage. On the right-hand side, that's in the study and shows just another portion of plaster issues that we have really throughout the house. Right, here's the stairway moving upstairs.
You just covered your eyes there.
I was told that the plaster issues look a lot worse than what the repair's going to require. So what we've obtained quotes for several from several companies for all the different categories of work here.
From real plasterers?
No.
Yeah, so what the plan will be to remove the damaged plaster and replace with drywall. And that's been done elsewhere in that house, and
okay.
you really can't tell unless you get up onto it and start knocking on walls.
Having owned a house that had bad plaster.
I've never had
Finding a
that.
plaster was the worst of the.
This is
worst of it.
moving up the steps, going to the upstairs, and then you can start to see some more paint issues as well. So we've obtained quote for painting of the interior. And then here's under the window of an upstairs master bedroom, I believe. This is in the level 1 study. That's that carpet that has since been pulled up. It was pretty soiled, so it's been removed, and then we've obtained pricing to replace with a cleanable surface vinyl tile. That would be in the study, the kitchen, and then what would be the second bedroom on the first floor, which we're looking at incorporating into a new bathroom with washer-dryer hookups.
Good. There isn't nice flooring under that.
No.
Right under that carpet, nothing. Because
Unfortunately.
I see
Oh,
it.
no, you can
It was
kind of see it in the...
subfloor.
Yeah.
It is just, yeah, I mean, because there's nice oaks, it looks like there's nice oak floor behind.
Yeah,
it,
no,
the
there was
lights.
no wood flooring or anything nice in that.
Well, I found it in my kitchen, that's why I was asking. when I took out
This
your
is
tile.
the upstairs wood floor that we have a quote to refinish and restain. Unfortunately, the size of the wood planks on level 1, it was recommended that we do not do any sort of refinishing because any sort of sanding on that would actually damage the really small, thin boards. So we've just included the upstairs portion. The downstairs wood portion is kind of included into the scope for the full house cleaning. So that would be included with them, and they would also do like a wax on that level 1 wood floor. And this is that wood floor that we were just discussing. This is the dining room looking into the living room. And here is, I think it's a bedroom, wasn't on the first
Back
floor.
bedroom,
The back
yeah.
bedroom on the
Where the
first
carpeting
floor.
came out, yeah.
That carpeting's pulled out, subfloor is still involved. But this on the left, we're looking at including
baseboard?
a tub shower,
Oh,
and
good.
then the sink and toilet, of course. And then straight ahead would be just the hookups to bring the washer and dryer up to level 1.
Is that a baseboard heater?
Yes.
Yes.
Have any of you been in the house?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
just wait till you'll understand why this first floor bathroom's necessary when you see the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
There's a picture of the bathroom.
So this is the second floor bathroom, and that's, I would say, at least a 2-inch difference stepping into that
And
bathroom.
it's the only
and then
bathroom in the house.
Right.
It is, the currently only bathroom in the house. It does not have a shower. It's just a bathtub. And
Is
it's,
this a gap? Or is
Yes.
this
It's uneven. Good eye. Yeah.
so our
I mean, like,
assumption,
literally
No, it's
a
an
crack.
actual gap.
Looks like a crack, but maybe it's just a photo.
It's a threshold.
It's a threshold.
Okay.
It's just like
offset.
this much
Yeah.
up.
Probably
Okay, from
3
here it
inches.
looks
Yeah,
like
no,
there's
no,
a, like
It
a,
is
you can
worn.
stub your toe inside.
it's
of it.
significant step up.
Okay.
Yeah.
The roughness of the wood
Yeah.
kind of tells
There's
you how
at
old
least
that
3
is.
bumps.
It's been nicked a few times, probably. And it slants down pretty significantly. It's almost like a fun house when you're standing in it. Unfortunately, I'm not trying to. But I can stand on this side and be taller, or as tall as Tim almost, if he stands on the other side. But
Oh, no.
Oh, so the marbles would really roll
so
up
our our thought is, and in our pricing document, we have $15,000 allotted for what would be the removal of this floor and kind of investigation into what needs to be done. Our assumption is, and the assumption of that contractor would be that they're going to have to replace the floor joists in here.
That would
So here you can kind of get another angle of that bathroom.
Wow.
I love that
And
old tub though. Oh,
yeah, the clawfoot tub is pretty cool. And here on the toilet's actually lifted above on another pedestal. I'm assuming the floor level used to be at that height, and from water damage and whatever, you can kind of see what the sinking that's occurred.
So it's kind of a throne there.
Yeah. It's hard
I
to
couldn't.
fuse 2 houses together.
Yeah, so I think our assumption is this is that location where
Yeah.
2 homes came together.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, you can tell.
And it's,
Yeah.
and then we've had water damage and other issues that have caused the damage to the
Oh, yeah.
floor joists that are going to need replaced, more than likely.
Oh, in the kitchen.
We start looking at dated cabinets, countertops. Those cabinets are in their normal position, partially open. So there's probably likely some sort of issue with getting things even in this house. So a lot of those doors are staying open. They're showing a lot of wear. Of course, they've been probably in there for over 30 years, I would assume, at this point.
Yeah.
So we've obtained pricing to replace, just modestly replace cabinets and countertops and provide an update. So on our second attachment into that memo, you'll see a spreadsheet with our selected providers for these 7 different categories of repairs, breaking down into their prices. So it's the plumbing, electrical, the bathroom on level 1, level 2 bathroom, not including the floor, is that number 1 item. Number 2 is the painting, plaster, drywall throughout the house. We did have radon tested last year, and we do need to get a system put into the house as well. So we have pricing there for number 3. Item 4 is the flooring that we discussed with the cleanable surface, the vinyl tile, the kitchen, the office, and then that would be in both bathrooms on the first floor, and then obviously after we replace the floor joist upstairs, we need to put a new finish there. Hardwood floor work upstairs, the kitchen cabinets, countertops, and installations all included, and our whole house cleaning, odor elimination, that includes the treatment to the wood floors on level 1. That brings us to about $59,000, and I had mentioned our unknown second floor bathroom costs. Currently,
I don't know, $15,000.
we're putting in $15,000 for that at the moment.
Renovated that.
So,
That's only for the floor, Mary. Actually, once that tub comes out of the floor, will probably rise
I know,
about half
well,
an
I
inch.
mean-
on its own.
Weighs a ton.
Painting is equivalent to adding a full bath, huh?
Right, no doubt.
Well, I wanted to say too, you'll see on the last page that, when we presented this to Finance Committee last week, none of the repairs are we're gonna be our own general contractor to commission all these repairs, and none of these repairs were really at a threshold that required board approval, but we really wanted your approval and your review, since the overall cost is $75,000, and we are gonna take it from, the capital budget. One thought we had, that I've had, is there's $14,000 in, the Meadowbrook Park Fund currently that we're also planning on funding the project, so we're only revising the capital budget by 61, the other 61,000 that is needed. But one other thought that I've had that, we can decide in future years is we actually could allocate some of the rent back into the capital budget as a transfer over multiple years if we wanted to, to try to help offset some of these upfront costs. But just, that can be a future decision that we don't have to decide today, but it was just a thought that I had. And, we didn't do that for that other $60,000 of stuff. So, it's just kind of one of those things that we can talk about in the future as the need arises. And it's certainly a source of revenue for the Park District that we could tap into for future projects.
So there's no labor in this because we're providing labor, or
no, this includes labor.
Yeah, so we're acting as the general, but we're gonna contract out each of those individual contracts to different contractors. So no one contract is over the bid threshold.
We
to
did
any contractor.
discuss doing, could we do this in-house? Obviously, we could, but the coordination, how long would it take?
Right.
And if it kept the renter out and we weren't collecting a rent for months and months and
Right.
months, so we kind of made that recommendation. The other thing I did want to address, the downstairs bathroom conversion, when as a team, we looked at, what's it going to cost? What else could we do now? Could we do things later? But, that was something we talked about. But we do know with our last renter, we were in a situation, if ADA would have required, we would have been compelled to, provide that. And so we just decided, why don't we take that opportunity now?
Of course.
And then any other future uses of the home, if it stays as staff, residence, that's fine. If it was ever, transitioned to another use, at least it would have, first floor, facilities in
Yeah,
it.
because
So-
it did become an accessibility
Right,
issue.
right.
Oh, yeah.
Miss Renter,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and if there ever was a future use that wasn't staff, like an artist in
Right.
residence or something,
Right.
it'll be an amenity that'll be useful.
Right.
And it's best to do it now.
Yes.
Right.
Just in there
Yeah,
messing
it
around
won't,
anyway.
won't get any cheaper, down the road, so.
No.
But that was one area we did, should we do it now or later? And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
strongly recommend to do it now because we certainly wouldn't have ADA concerns
Well,
down
and
the
we're gonna
road.
have all of these contractors mobilized, so it really makes sense to just do it now. They're already there doing the other work, so to me, it makes the most sense.
The building's vacant, no one's in there. We
Right.
can get people in and out and not have to worry about, affecting the life of a
Right.
tenant.
Right.
And then lastly, the good news is we've had a considerable exterior and then an interior renovation.
Mm-hmm.
So getting, like all of our properties, all of our facilities, we've worked through to get them up to speed.
Mm-hmm.
This would be one we could feel good about it, for that next window of time.
One thing there were two pictures of windows in that as you went by. You didn't mention those. They didn't look good. The windows looked like they needed replacement as well. Was that
We don't,
discussed?
we have plans in the future to replace basement windows I've seen, but likely that would probably be something that would come later on down the
Okay.
road after a
All
tenant's
right. I mean, they didn't look awful, but
Some
I mean.
have been replaced.
Some have been replaced in the last 10
But-
years.
There's
I think
some
the living
vinyl
room.
replacement windows in the
Okay,
house, but not
the
all
ones
of
that
them.
we saw were
Right.
not
Right.
Oh,
replacement windows.
definitely not.
And lastly, I keep saying lastly, it's fair to say we'll still have other repairs to do, like windows we
Okay.
talked about. Eventually, siding would be something we'd
Yeah.
have to, what do we? But at least in this next wave, we thought this would get us
Oh,
up
yeah,
to
here,
speed.
future.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah, so,
Andy.
Let's
so
make
even
the
down
house
the
livable.
So yeah, down the road, we're thinking landscaping, fencing, the back stoop, basement windows, as we mentioned, and hooking up to city sanitary.
Oh, is that a septic or a skeptic tank?
Right.
Septic,
Right.
skeptic.
A skeptic.
So as Katie had mentioned, we have the memo for you tonight, which is really a budget revision for the 2019 capital budget, number 1, which is actualizing the bond sale from 740,000 to 140 to 738,065, and then taking the $61,000 in Meadowbrook Park House repairs from contingency.
No, you're fine.
Fix that house.
So I move to approve the number 1 revision to the capital, to the 2019 capital improvement budget.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the matter? Hearing none, let's do a roll call, starting at the right with Roger.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously with all 5 commissioners voting.
Great.
And that brings us to recreation statistics and Corky.
Thank you, Corky.
So just to point out how this report is made up, each program season, we do each staff group goes through, does significant facts about their numbers, submits this seasonal report to our front office staff, Charles, who then, his job is then to take all of this, tons of information, put it together, and put it together in a full in-depth report. Typically what I do is I go through the first 3 to 4 pages, and tonight I have got, while going through the report, I also asked staff to give me, 3 or 4 things from each group, a couple in some cases, to kind of highlight some of the significant things. So by all means, if you've gone through the entire report and you have questions, definitely ask me. But some of our numbers are down, and so while a 15% could seem huge, it also has reasons for that, and so that's why I wanted to point out some of the points. So talking aquatics, that's actually really good for the fact that we're counting on the weather. Our outdoor pool, we didn't have as many visits this past year. However, our budget performed better than the year before when we had larger numbers. So, that's a good point there. The other thing with aquatics, we had a couple movie nights that were rained out. Weather was kind of iffy all summer. So for aquatics, all in all, I'm pretty excited about where things ended up. Athletics, we've got 2 main causes for the decrease. Tim was talking a little bit earlier about the study and the change in athletics. We've had discussions in the past about travel teams. We had one big group, a travel soccer group, that affected us a couple ways. They used to rent our soccer fields, and so in those numbers, you're seeing multiple uses that are not happening as far as them renting the soccer fields. But you're also seeing some of the older kids not participating in our soccer. They're in this travel league. A good thing that we started last year, hopefully you guys recall, we redid the archery agreement, And with that archery agreement, we added more sessions. Those are filling up, continually filling up again. So now we have some fall lessons, and they're doing well. So that's a bonus.
So is there maybe an opportunity here to offer new programming?
Yes.
That's not in competition with.
Yes, and that's some of the thinking of what we're talking about with CPD and the U of I on the study that we're looking at. And also educating about the benefits of free play, recreational play, and a combination of the competitive play. And the different skills you learn from being in a competitive league versus a rec league. So, one of the things I see big about that at this moment in time is now we have parents that are at the age to where they played travel league and travel league alone. And so you've got a mindset of that's how you have to go. So I think we're starting to see a bigger impact due to that philosophy from parents. So that's what I have for athletics. Community programs. We had 2 of our major neighborhood nights. Carl and Meadowbrook were rained out. So that's one big thing. Another big thing is our dance participation was down quite a bit. Majority of that was due to the Urbana country dancers moving their location. They've done a lot of their dances on U of I's campus.
Why do you think they moved?
A lot of student participation, so U of I student
Uh-huh.
participation. So they moved to do that. A big point that I think we all should take note on when we formed a partnership with Clark Lindsay Village, our participation for senior unregistration has gone up 29%. With the work that Jacob's doing. Again, a lot of that is computer tech help, health screenings, those kinds of things going around to different businesses and sitting for a time, or open houses, those kinds of things. Also in those community numbers, some of the differences is our runs and park closures. Savoy's been getting a lot of business in the runs. We actually went down from 22 runs that were using our parks, so outside groups coming in, to 11 in 2018. So that has a big impact when you count the number of people that attended those individual races.
So how do you feel about that?
Actually, we're trying to get more into doing our own things. So, if there's a need for us to facilitate, that's fantastic. I think as Crystal Lake gets rejuvenated, I think we'll start to see all that come back. The park at Savoy's brand new, nice, beautiful park, and I can see the attraction there. Geese is a problem wherever,
Right.
Nobody likes our geese situation. So
KRT might open up some new
the
opportunities.
KRT is going to
for
definitely
walks
open up
or runs.
some opportunities for us. So again, it's not I don't really have a good or bad feeling. I mean, we're here to facilitate for that. If we can
Right.
facilitate, great, but I don't, it's a way we can reach people that have a need.
Right.
But if they don't have a need and they've filled it somewhere else, that's okay too.
All right, okay, that's good.
Splash numbers, Dr. Preston Williams School, their number of sessions went down by 1 for splash. Some of the high school numbers are a little lower due to what they're saying is deans and staff, turnover in deans and staff at the high school has kind of changed some of the numbers there. And then at the early education, which is the one we started a couple of years ago, we had 7,200 total visits in that one this year compared to 8,640 visits, but we had to drop that back from 6 weeks to 4 weeks of programming. So that's what I have for community. Environmental, which has been doing really well. Of course, I have a whole huge list from Judy. I'm going to give you a couple. So if she's watching, I didn't give her the whole list.
Should be storming in the door.
Our
Oh, no, she's in the right.
let's see, loan boxes decreased, so there's a little bit of negative. It went from 12 to 7, but the participation increased from 225 to 4,129. Two of the loan boxes were used by the teachers, so they were taking them to the schools, and all their children were using them on a regular basis. So each time they use them, so they're counting the number of days, the number of boxes, and the number of students. That's how she's determining that. The one thing that has been happening quite well for them is in the all-age public programs. They had 909 participants this year compared to 182 in 2017, which the Mars Madness event was a big part of that. That was 700 people just in that event. So
I have family all ages going down 21%. Am I missing something? Where am I here?
What page are you on, Nancy?
I don't know, 16.
16?
yeah, well,
Environmental, am I looking wrong?
page 16.
Yep. Yeah, 16. Did I say 18?
No, you said 16.
Oh, I did say 16. Good.
Going to 21?
Yeah, the second one down. His family all ages is 176.
Was it just for that one season that it changed that much, Corky?
So that's a,
I'm looking in the bullet points to find that
Oh.
answer for you.
where are you?
Which play? It states that it did go down 11%.
Is it this one?
Where's that?
18, page
Oh yeah,
18.
where's that at?
It's page 19. So overall for the whole year, it had that slight decrease, but in the May through August season was the point that Corky was talking about.
I see.
It's about halfway down the
Yeah,
page.
mid-page,
Yeah.
Right.
24.
I'm on it first.
What's also interesting is that overall, it increased by 67% looking at adult, preschool, special events, teen and youth.
Mm-hmm. And we are, we're actually in the process in community programs as well, adding a lot of pre-K type programming. I know I'm working on budget at this point, and there's couple new categories for pre-K camps and community programs. So. Going on to outreach and wellness. I will talk a little bit about the decreases, and then I'll talk a little bit about the our You Belong participation. So we lost a line dance fitness program, I think the instructor moved away. It was a very popular program, so that was one of the major decreases in that area. However, we are starting new programs such as the Candlelight Concentration program, which is starting to be just as popular as the line dance fitness program was.
Well, that easier too.
You know, also, when you're thinking, and I didn't mention this with Aquatics earlier, but we were closed also 3 weeks this year compared to 2 weeks at the indoor pool, so that has an effect on the numbers as well. She's also mentioned here, there's a lot of flexi passes.
And those would be the unregistered participation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the flexi passes are going really well. Less sign up, registered type programming. For the special events is kind of how we have these listed. I just want to make a quick list. We had LNAC. We had 3 special LNAC group outings, whether it was their harvest cookout, their kickoff, garden opening kickoff.
What's ILNAC?
Learman Neighborhood Avenue.
Action Committee.
So we had 68 people at that. The Learman Neighborhood July Garden Cookout, we had 80 people. Free Wave Back to School Party had 135. Play days in the park, there was a total of 5 events. There was 570 people who showed up at those. Latin Dance Night had 27. Dia de los Muertos event, that sounded pretty good, was 112. We had another LNAC October Harvest Cookout that was 52 people. And we had 1,800 people show up at Turkey Trot.
Those numbers were down too, right? Though, weren't they?
What's that?
The Turkey
Trot.
There were 2,200 the year before.
Right.
But it was also, I think, about 60 degrees that day.
And it was the 50th, and it was.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right, okay.
Did a lot of marketing promotion.
Yeah. So, one of her goals is to work with the promotion to help incentivize patrons to try classes and register for Flexi Passes. Flexi Passes has always been an up and down thing. It's usually pretty consistent, but then you have years where it's really, for some reason, you just sell a lot more of those than you have in the past. So that's kind of the bullets they gave me. Going down to the next chart, this is rentals. Again, primarily for rentals, our biggest decrease was in the athletics fields space. However, again, at the budgets and all those numbers, the year before was an exceptional year in rentals. So it kind of has its ups and downs. Kyle's main thing was the soccer group that used to use us quite regularly. Ended up going to Dodds where they use lighted fields, soccer fields. So,
Is that the group that used to be out there every Saturday?
Saturday and evenings on the softball fields, even they were using the grass in the softball fields.
Okay.
So, we still have rental groups that, we're still doing a pretty good size rental business in the sports area, but some of the major one is moved over to Dodds. Going to the programs offered and canceled. Again, this is right around the percentage. You can see we offered, it looks like 5 more programs, but it's still in that, I like to be between 5 and 7%. Page 2. Okay. Well, there's only one thing on the rentals is the one line, so. And you can see, I guess, going back, the rental actual expense or revenue is about $15,000, but again, that's spread throughout each area. So Nature Center, Phillips, Ball Fields, Brookins. So then going over to page 2, programs offered. We offered about 5 more and canceled about 10 less, but it's still in the 5 to 7%. I like it more near the 7% because that means that's offering and trying more things. However, we did offer more, and more things did go. And we've done a lot of things that are not necessarily included, like the Learman neighborhood thing. That's not going to be included in these numbers. So those kinds of things that we're doing, no matter what, don't have that opportunity to be canceled, and they're not considered in this area. And then the last page, or page 3, which continues on to page 4, is going into the volunteer hours. And, you know, majority of that comes into number of teams you have in your leagues, to the number of staff or interns that we have that are helping run events. All of our neighborhood events that we did do with outreach and wellness, those were all staffed by full-time employees and a couple part-timers here or there, but that wasn't necessarily a volunteer type event.
It's impressive that we offered we went from 1 to 11 senior programs.
This is Jacob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the very end of it, again, I don't need to go through and read it, but one thing that I did add this year is on page 4, it starts with public information and marketing. That's something we have not put in there in the past, but I wanted the board to be aware of all of the different things that we have been doing with marketing and public information this year. Mark, like, he's done a fabulous job in his first year, him and Fallon both. Fallon, you know, has always been top-notch for us, and Mark has really done a good job of media connections, and his marketing budget hasn't spent as much money as we spent in the past, but we've done more. So he's, you know, whether it's a trade-off of services or what it is, or just connection, knowing who to talk to, he's done a fabulous job. So I just wanted you guys, and I'm going to continue to do that so that he gets, so you guys can see throughout the year. I know we were at one meeting, Meredith, and you weren't aware of the mark in the parks and that kind of stuff. So as we continue to do more and more in those areas, I want to make sure that it's pointed out.
Corky, under outreach, is the Silver Border neighborhood event, was that listed? I know, was it because that was a city of Urbana, or
It didn't get listed because we were more of just a partner
support.
being there. We didn't organize it, but we were, there's a lot.
There were a lot of groups there. I don't know if anybody organized
Yeah.
it, but certainly
Right.
there were a couple hundred people at that event too that.
And there's a lot of outreach
Right.
Programming that we did with other agencies that
Right.
doesn't necessarily get tied into this report.
I think
Every area has done some of that. You know, the Pride Fest is not in there,
Right,
but that's
right,
something that
right. Exactly.
so.
Yep. Good point.
It's good to see more activity in the marketing area, to be honest. Getting out there and fostering relationships, and, you know, just finding ways, always finding ways to partner with people to put UPD on the map. So that's really great to see.
So, I'm based on some of the info, Tim, that you put in your report about the work with the coalition and concerns, the current concerns at the high school that were in the news as of late. I noticed we have like a huge drop off in splash.
Yeah.
For
at the high
Urbana
school.
High,
Yeah.
right? From 900 to 186.
Yeah.
So is it the programming's? I mean, that's kind of a big.
Yeah.
Do we know what's going on there?
Nothing good.
Well, all I can tell you that, Linda's Gibbons from the school is in charge of actually organizing the Splash program. We are in charge of programming.
Right.
And, I don't know the situation of why there's less individuals involved. All I know is, there has been some dean changeover and that kind of stuff. And
Well, it's just fascinating because it's like we're building them up in the middle school, right? You had a 52% increase at Urbana Middle School.
Right.
And then they're not hanging. I mean, the idea would be they would know what this
Right.
this is, and
Right, right, and there would
and
be a
I
continuation.
recognize there's high school is a different segment, but
That's a dramatic change, yeah.
right, but it's just like
We should do follow-up.
Yeah.
And ask,
I'm looking for
talk to some more
Janet's
folks.
note because she,
Well, what's interesting is that even having kids at the high school, the newsletter that comes out every day, it's lengthy, but it's nothing like any programs that we offer or anything about
Interesting.
21st century. Now, I had to ask about 21st
Okay.
century, just for the tutoring aspect of everything, because my kids usually participate in that, just so they can be there, do homework if they need help. But there's not a lot of information about splash programs as far as UPD is concerned. I feel like, aside from the dean situation, I'm not quite sure, like, even if whoever's in charge of it, what the outreach is like in the high school. I think it definitely has slacked off. There is some disengagement in a variety of areas. And I mean, yes, it continues to be problematic, but I'm not even sure with the student population, the demographics that you're trying to reach for the programs, how to really reach them in the schools. There's so much activities going on outside the school that I really feel like there's a lot of people that's trying to reel it back in and trying to turn things around, but I think we're going to struggle for a little while to get it turned around, to get the right people. I don't know if the person, Linda, needs help or what other
just
person.
so you know, it sounds like the deans were responsible in the note that Janet gave me. So there was no one organizing when the dean's changeover happened.
But I think you bring up a good point.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an opportunity for us, what are we offering? How are we communicating it? What's the marketing strategy? How do we partner with the schools to get more awareness? Maybe there's things we can do sort of to help kickstart that. Not necessarily fix some fundamental issues, but
Right.
at least take control of the things that we could do and try to work with folks to get a better feel of how do we do that? How do we improve that? Because
Right.
I agree, Meredith, that's a dramatic drop. If it was 200 to 100, okay.
Right, or even
Right.
300 to 100, but
But that
9
looks
to 1
like
is-
But when you have
disengagement.
10,000, almost 10,000 visits by high schoolers or middle schoolers, who you would
Right.
hope would then eventually go into high school,
Right,
and
of
you could
course.
capture half of that.
Exactly.
And that would be
Right.
amazing.
So I'd love to know why, what
And
what was the individual student's interest, or was it some mechanism that changed something that, I don't know, I think we need to
and
find out.
improving that is only going to improve the atmosphere at the school.
Yeah.
I think that it's it's a small drop, but it's nonetheless a positive step as opposed to neutral or backwards.
Right.
But is it a time that, is now the time that we try to meet the school district at the table? Is it a time where,
Absolutely.
They've all gone into the witness protection.
whether, the interim people,
Sure.
they've had the history, and regardless of what their track record is like, I think, is it a good time for us to meet them at the table to kind of help figure out how can we engage and partner even in a different direction to whether it's communicating more in the school, whether it's, 2 or 3 point of contact people who are in charge of this? I mean, is this the time? Maybe so. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that would be a good question to ask, or is it, do we need to get the new leadership in place and start on the ground level, with them? I'm just not certain, but certainly can't stop us from asking questions and wanting to meet. I know we are going to interview with the school for our strategic plan. That's not really the purpose of that meeting, but maybe there's a way to do some follow-up, sit down with the folks that are involved and get their impression. What can we do? How do we change? How do we start?
Yeah.
Is it asking students what they'd like to do, or what did some other, I can't explain that.
And maybe
disconnect.
they were unwilling.
Learning, what are we doing so well at Urbana Middle School?
Right.
Right, I mean.
Right.
Well,
I
and
think-
at the middle school,
Excuse me.
some of that splash program is for individuals who need assistance with the educational component as well. You probably get more buy-in at a middle school level than at the high school level.
I think at the high school, interests just change. I mean, whatever programs we're offering, transition. Like I had a child that was very athletic up until freshman year. And now she's not interested in athletics at all. She's more interested in committees and organized groups. So, the transition of what's offered at a middle school versus high school, their interests change. And, are we really in a position to change with them, to offer programs that will continue to allow them to be engaged and participate in?
Not that this would answer it, but, prior to Dr. Owen leaving, we had talked about, some different ideas of really trying to engage our student population. One was Blair Park. How could we utilize that park in a way that might reinvigorate or galvanize or create a new place, for people? The other thing we talked about was, I called it a youth summit in Urbana, where we really try to get well organized and get youth together and kind of find out what are their needs, what are their interests, and really try to do some of that and not just talk about it. Obviously, we could still do that, but we need to get the right people and get willing partners, that want to do those sort of things. I think it'd be really a good opportunity. The alternatives aren't so great.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to do some follow-up and come back at least with what we can find out.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
I think that would be helpful. Will do.
Because certainly it's easy to understand why middle school buy-in would be so much greater, but just the difference.
Yeah.
Well, and even the difference from last year to this year,
Yes,
right?
that's what I mean.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
yeah. Like,
Yeah,
we did
80%
something was
drop.
great.
Yeah, something happened.
Right,
Well,
exactly.
they do, when you're making that move, you're just about getting ready to drive too, and I would think that's a.
Well,
in the
Yeah,
world-
but
even looking at
Oh, sure, yes.
the middle school
looking at
itself,
from one year to
But
the
for-
next.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
the middle
Yep,
school
yep.
numbers increased by 52%. So something's really working there.
Yeah,
Whether or
right.
not it can be translated to other schools, but just
Right.
trying to understand
What it
that
is.
what that is,
I
I think
agree.
is helpful.
Completely opposite.
Right.
Right.
Well, I
But
mean,
even looking at the primary schools as well, like you saw more drops than that. So what are we doing? That's
Well, I'm going to think if you've got a dicey atmosphere at school, you're not going to want to stay around after school.
that's true.
I mean,
Well, as
if it were
parents,
that.
you're not going to want them to stay
Stay,
around.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's true too.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
Yeah.
But certainly want to know all the reasons,
Right.
things that we probably can't control that, but what can we control? and
Right.
Maybe that's where our opportunity lies.
When you say a youth summit, Tim, what do you have in mind?
Well, the idea was to try to work within the schools to create some form of communication or representation so that maybe within each, maybe middle school or the high school, that define projects, programs, activities, maybe it's curricula that would come out of that to, really go through a process to re-engage and reinvest in our youth. I think it's missing. Not blaming anybody. It's probably a lot of communities that are, struggling with those things. But, if we don't make it an opportunity, it'll just get shoved aside. So I'd really suggest we engage with that. Maybe there's something we can do at each school, to create a sense of pride at each school and Could be an outcome or a project or an art thing or, whatever. Could be history or cultural, expression, but something to help galvanize or to create identity. I think that at least was my idea. Reinvigorate a sense of pride or neighborhood or school that would create distinction.
Any other comments or questions? Thanks much, Corky. And that takes us on. We don't have any new business removed from the consent agenda, so we're on to comments from commissioners.
I have a question more than a comment, I guess. I'm just curious what we're thinking in terms of the new development that the city is proposing on the corner of Vine and Main, with all of that housing.
Is it Vine?
Is it Vine and Main?
Yes, the Goodyear site.
Right.
Near
So
the
there's
city
housing
building.
there,
Yep.
and then there's the new artist. Right. So
Yep.
that brings I don't know what the total numbers of that is, but or what those projects are in terms of housing. But Victory Park seems to be the closest park. So I just wonder about what we're thinking. And then obviously Crystal Lake Park is like right there, but
Yeah.
5 Points is in the way.
A couple of barriers.
So I guess what are our thoughts in terms of, and this is just where you're thinking about connectivity to those parks longer term as the city is rolling out its sort of development plans?
Sure. Well, I mean, several things. One, we certainly have a good bike and ped, plan in place. So I think there are ways to get people around. Usually it's awareness and wayfinding. Do people know where to go? Are they drawn to those places? What amenities are close by? So another aspect, I know the city's going to be looking at all their facilities, doing an assessment. One of the topics that came up would be, is there an opportunity for some open space element in any future new development? So that area near the city building, I don't know what's planned there, but certainly opportunities to keep talking about that. I'm not sure if you're talking about the density of some of these and but my understanding is there seems to still be an intense interest in getting more density of housing in downtown Urbana. So I guess from that perspective, we're making some progress. Areas that I worry a little more about is some of the student housing areas along University Avenue. That canyon continues to grow, and, I don't see a lot of open space or new facilities for people to go, recreationally. Certainly you can go anywhere on a bus, but I'm not sure what I call neighborhood amenities are going to be, because I think the fact is people tend to stick a little closer to home. They like to walk out, they'll go to their neighborhood park, or end up at a park like Meadowbrook or Crystal Lake. But if it's too many barriers or too far away, they're probably just not going to be there. So you have to look closer at home. I don't know all the details in some of these developments, but I've looked at, for example, at what's at Bristol Park over in North Champaign. The new Martin Center is going to be there. They have a new park, and there's outdoor amenities with active recreation right in that dense, development. So those things help. So, certainly these are things we should continue to discuss. We can definitely do some checking on that too.
Thanks.
Good question. I think, last comment, I think there's a little uncertainty what exactly in that downtown core is really what's going to happen. We were hopeful Lincoln Square might take a turn. Now, not sure, I don't know. There could be great plans in the works, but we just haven't heard about them. So.
We were also talking about getting together with some city staff to discuss some future EAV growth expectations as part of our strategic planning.
Yep.
So that might be an opportunity.
Right.
We can talk to them about those particular developments too and get some ideas going.
Interested to see what the business model is and if there's a target demographic, and begin thinking about our parks in that context. I think the KRT is going to be really vital because of all the happenings on University. We know that University and Lincoln, the developer there, is keen on the KRT and has actually begun to adjust his site plan to take advantage of the KRT.
That's fantastic.
Maybe it's an opportunity on the marketing promotion side. We reach out to these new developments in Blitzkrieg, a message or an activity or a reach out, certainly you'd have to continue that. I don't think you do it once and people just come out of the woodwork to all your programs and parks. But maybe there are opportunities. We concentrate on a few new areas and try to, develop a base. So those would be good goals, I think, as we just talked about goals for the upcoming year. I like those, and I think we hit at least 3 of them right
Get
tonight.
a 30-second crosswalk at Race and University.
We're with you. We're with you.
We could make it into sort of an adventure playground.
I mean, I recently did it again, and I'm like,
A challenge course.
yeah, right? No, I mean, it was great to walk through Crystal Lake Park, but to cross at Race, it was like, oh, we got to scoot across.
Now, our understanding is there'll be better lighting controls with the new university corridor.
Okay.
Each major intersections will be upgraded with, so we're told.
Oh, and when is that starting?
Well,
Delayed.
yeah, it's been delayed.
They're still working with some of the landowners that they're acquiring property from.
Oh, further west?
Right.
Yeah,
On the
yeah.
acquisition right away
Yeah, yeah.
stuff.
Last I heard, maybe May or June.
Yeah. I think it
Oh,
was
but that
originally,
soon.
yeah.
And is there a timeline on this development in downtown Urbana? I mean, are they saying, oh, we would like this to happen, or this is going
No,
to happen?
they've
or-
sold they have the
Yeah.
developer.
Right.
It's the same person who developed those units on Nevada that were controversial.
Another.
But at least for the
not the guy who did
the Goodyear, and
doors.
then I don't know if it's a different developer for the Lincoln
Right.
and University.
Right. Maybe that's a future study session topic, have economic development come and talk about,
That
when-
would be really
when
good.
Michael and I go
Yes,
to the
that's a
TIF
great
meetings,
idea.
it's in arrears, it's what's been
Yeah.
done. So you hear about what's happened, but
Right,
we
right.
don't necessarily get what's coming or what
Right.
some of those are, or at least a way to ask questions, like, those are good questions.
Sure, yeah, yeah. That's a good
And so, if you're interested, we could set a session up
Yeah.
like that.
Yes,
So we
yeah.
could learn maybe a little more about each one of these major developments, what
Mm-hmm.
the schedules are, who the target audience is, and maybe have a dialogue, what can we do to meet any other park and recreation needs, or community needs for that matter.
Well, I'd like to have a conversation with the sort of little arty section, just because I think that'll help define what we do with the School for Designing a Society.
Right.
So that if I were to order them, that's what I would choose to hear about first, because I
Okay.
think that information might help us make better choices
Sure.
for how we deal with them.
Right. All right. Definitely a good goal for this upcoming year.
When are we going to decide if we have a study session in March?
I don't know. I'm a yay. I'm
I
going to be
thought-
there,
didn't
so
we-
I don't know.
I think we decided.
Oh,
that
we
had
are.
3. I thought
Okay.
we had 3.
Okay, so if we have 3, we'll do it.
Yes, I think
Okay.
Roger and Michael are out. That's
Okay.
my understanding.
Okay.
We'd still have a quorum.
The girls. Watch out.
To take over the world.
Starting tomorrow. Okay.
Any other commissioner comments? Well, hearing none, then we've exhausted our agenda, and I will declare us adjourned.
Okay, thank